Hello, BookTube. Well, as promised, or perhaps as threatened, I did indeed go back to the Brattle bookshop here in Boston today. It's a beautiful, cloud-free, blue sky, sunny day with temperatures almost 70 degrees Fahrenheit in the middle of winter in Boston. And it was that way right from the beginning of the day, right from early morning. The crack of dawn, I was awake and moving around getting stuff done quietly at the crack of dawn. Of course, my little warrior princess was not interested in doing anything at the crack of dawn, but eventually, hours later, when it was still fairly early, the sun had yet to come over the crest, we went out, and ordinarily that's when you've got the bite of the morning, and there was nothing at all. Nothing at all. Just a warm, pleasant day. So the question really wasn't, was I going to go to the Brattle? I had a bunch of errands to do, actually. They cropped up out of nowhere and crowded around me like the ghosts around Ulysses in the afterworld. I didn't know that I had that many errands to do, and once I saw them all, I didn't think I could do them all. I didn't think that I'd be able to get them all done in the time that I had in just a one little block of morning, but I somehow did. It makes me feel invigorated. But the question wasn't that it was whether or not I was going to go to the Brattle. The question was, how was I going to get my haul from the Brattle back here? As you will all know, since I'm sure every one of you absolutely hung breathlessly with anticipation on the long, tedious video that I made yesterday about the ongoing struggle of my shoulder bag, the drama of my book bag. The book bag that I had been using for a couple of years now is wearing out. The cloth grounding around the base of one of the shoulder straps is wearing out. You can actually see through it. You can see light through it. You'll know, because I'm sure that you hung on every word of those videos. I need to replace that bag, and it is the height of American hyper-commercialism for me to want to get a new bag when I had a closet literally full of shoulder bags. So I had my surly houseboy open the closet, and I took out all the bags, and I showed them to you all in a row yesterday in an epic video, trying to decide which one should be the bag that I use so that I don't use my current bag, because if you've got a bag and it's eroding in some way, it's going to explode at the worst possible time. It's going to explode when you're not predicting it and when you're nowhere near where you could do anything about it. The best thing to do is say your goodbyes to that bag, no matter how much you love it, and swap it out for something that doesn't have that kind of growing physical problem. And I was agonizing over this because these errands swarmed up right away, and I wasn't sure. I don't have any time to be going through an existential crisis about changing bags. I think I should risk using my original shoulder bag one more time. And then I thought, no, that's the whole point of your observation about it, is that you won't be expecting when it rips right out, when it rips apart, and you'll be stuck. So I voxered young Micah Cummins about it and said, I really think that I should be late for my errands and swap out all the stuff to some new and stronger bag now. And he said, what, you afraid to use your original bag? You afraid? And I said, well, that's a kind of taunting way to put it. And he said, oh, really? You think you're taunted? So what, are you some sort of soy boy cuck? You know how Micah can be. So goaded by him, I did use my original bag one more time today, which was insane. I knew perfectly well that by the time I was done with my day, I would be carrying 50 pounds in it, encouraging it to break. But I didn't want Micah to laugh at me, so I did it. And catastrophe was avoided, but I could swear I heard the thing creaking, like cordage that's straining and snapping one strand at a time. I could swear I heard that. Probably that was just my imagination. But today was my last set of errands outside in the real world with a bag for a few days. So I will make a point of transferring everything out of that bag. Fortunately, there isn't a whole strong element of sentimentality involved. That bag is the bag that I showed you, my current shoulder bag, it's mighty strong. It's mighty heavy. That's why I got it, so that it wouldn't wear out quite as fast. But it never really did endear itself to me. I don't like it. I don't like the look of it. And I don't really like the feel of it at all. I have to confess that the thing I like the most is my old leather bag, which, incidentally, got the highest number of votes in emails from people saying that's the one you should use. Find some way to strengthen those side straps and just use that. It looks so cool. I don't know that it looks cool. I don't think that it does. I think it's gone beyond that point. But I love that bag. I felt terrible when I had to leave it behind. So at least the sentimental element is gone. But I need to do that transfer this weekend for next week's errands. I need to do that transfer this weekend. But it held. Catastrophe was averted. And I got a pile of books. I wanted to show them to you. Now, some of the books here are whims, and some of the books here are flyers. The Brattle, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, it's a used bookstore in Boston. And it has a fantastic selection of used books and also a sale lot outside next to the store that is the size of the floor plan of another building. Another building used to be there. And it's full of sale carts. $1, $3, and $5 sale carts. Thousands of them. Thousands of books. Arranged in no way other than price. So it's just inviting you to browse. Just inviting you to get to the edge of the lot and say, well, I was going to give this 15 minutes, but I think I can spare 2 hours. I'm just going to look at every one of these books. And while you're going, you just fill your arm with stuff. Ooh, that looks good. Ooh, that looks good. And because the books are so cheap, you probably won't have to winnow any of them at the end. I was just at the Brattle sale lot, but I went again. And because the books are so cheap, you can take a flyer on anything that interests you. The thing that I noted today was how many things I really want. I'm not sure how many of them are complete keepers. One of them I know is going in the little book room, which is the goal here. But it could be that 4 of these are going in there. It's certainly, this had a higher percentage of known quantities that I not only know but love and really like in this particular edition or this particular find, as opposed to a higher percentage of stuff I kind of liked and might like to give another try to, or stuff that I've always been meaning to read and never got around to, or stuff like that. Very satisfying. A smaller number of books. It didn't feel it while I was lugging the bag here. A smaller number of books, but very satisfying. The first one is the only mass market paperback, and it is in warped, waterlogged condition. It's one of these taller mass market paperbacks. I think they're called prestige format. I really like that format. I really do. I find it more congenial to read, even though it's less congenial to pack anywhere. Which gets us back to a shoulder bag, but I've talked enough about that. I will deal with the shoulder bag. I will pick one this weekend. The strong suggestion was that I take that leather bag to some sort of shop and have it reinforced. I don't want to do that. I don't want to spend any money on these things. The whole point of not buying a new shoulder bag is that I don't want to spend any money. I've got a literal stack of shoulder bags. Surely I can find one there that I can simply start to use without paying a specialist. Anyway, this is a paperback of a book that I don't like nearly as much as its author does. I liked it very much. This is Citizen Washington by the novelist William Martin, who a lot of you will, he's listed here for City of Dreams on the cover, but a lot of you will know him for Cape Cod and Back Bay. And this is his novel to his greatest hero. This is the historical novel that he really, in a way, always wanted to write. This is his tribute to George Washington. And it's done in the William Martin style. I mean, it's a little bit different from a lot of his other books in its much stronger historical focus, but you know what you're getting with this author. You're getting an amazing storyteller, someone who won't let you down. And that's what this is. The only quibble is that I don't admire Washington at all. It's not just that I'm neutral to him. I despise him. And a certain chunk of this book was born out of the author's admiration for this figure. That's unavoidable in this book. He prunes it down. He knows that that's a betrayal of the writer's art. You can't just bleed that through onto the page. You've got to filter it and weigh it and see it. And you've got to have your characters see it. And he does. There's nothing about writing a four-square, button-down, completely reliable novel that William Martin doesn't know. He knows that, and he takes care of it in this book, but it's unavoidable. An air of it is unavoidable. But I'm going to give it another try. I haven't read it since it came out, which was, I want to say the early 2000s. So it's even hard to turn the pages on this thing because they're water warped. How well you can make that out. 1999, so right at the beginning of the 2000s. Then we have I think that this is a UK trade paperback. I'm pretty sure. I didn't really examine it, but I've never seen it in America. This is by William Hague, and it's his biography of William Pitt the Younger. And I'm always up for a new biography. This has the inset pictures, just a set of pictures on the inside. See there? You can see them in the spine there, which tends to weaken the book and tends to make rereading pretty difficult. But I'm going to plow my way through this anyway. I find this figure fascinating, and I don't think I've ever read this book. Unless the only way that I've read this book is if it had an American edition that I'm not recognizing because it didn't look anything like this. But it doesn't ring a bell. Author names very seldom ring a bell with me, but I don't think I've ever read this. So I'm happy to give it a try and put it with a two-shelf area in the biography section is slowly developing into trade paperback biographies. Slowly, they're all starting to accumulate there because it's two shorter shelves and they fit perfectly. So it'll end up there eventually, but first I want to read it. Then we have, this is a bit of a beat up copy, and it also has an indelible sticker on it, which really bothers me. Most stickers are removable. Trust me, I've removed millions of stickers from books in my day. Most of them are removable. This thing, I doubt very much that it is. It's 50 years old, and it was heavy industrial tape when it was done. But I love the book. I love it far more than I like anything else that this author wrote. This is Hammond Inns, and this is The Wreck of the Merry Deer with this thing on it. And that simply will not come off. I might be able to get that off the cover, but I'll have a spot that's white instead of yellow right there. It will certainly take the artwork off that's underneath it. That is so annoying. I have no idea why anyone would do that. Someone did, and they did it a long time ago. This thing came out when? 1950s, I know. 1956. Probably that was put on there soon after. So it's been there for half a century. But this is a novel. It came out, it was serialized originally. I read it in serial form originally. And then it came out as a book, and it's about the storied life of one vessel that's very much like the Marie Celeste, very much of a nautical mystery of what happened to the crew and the captain. It's been I have an ebook of this, but it's been a long time since I read The Wreck of the Merry Deer. A long, long time. It would be a long time since probably 50 years. So I saw it at the Brattle and grabbed it there as our author in full nautical gear. Then this next one, boy oh boy, we're hitting a block now of things that, the rest of these things I'm not sure that I know it. I haven't read it in a long time, didn't really love it, but I liked it, so I'll read it again. Haven't read it in an even longer time. I liked it, I'll read it again. Sure, why not? If you're presenting me with these things for $1 a piece, sure, why not? That's not the same thing as the particular kind of squeal that you get when you hit something that you really, really want. I'm sure you all know that. I found a few of those things today. One of them, this big thing, is a volume of the old Cambridge Ancient History. Cambridge University Press did a multi-volume set of the Cambridge Ancient History. I believe they updated it once, but 100 years ago they did a set, and it was elaborately wonderful, just elaborately. They break up the ancient history into all kinds of different periods, and then farm out the individual chapters in that period to a whole bunch of different scholars. So it's not just one person. It's a whole bunch of experts weighing in. And the production value, oh my God. Well, I'll show you. I found the Cambridge Ancient History for Volume 10. This is the Augustan Empire. And it has fold-out maps in multiple colors. Let's see if we can do this without destroying it. Look at that. That is just North Africa. How beautiful is that? You've got the whole map and then the legend on the side there. And these go all throughout the book. There are all kinds of that kind of map all throughout here. Just amazing. Oh, wait. Did I find a bit of personalized ephemera? I did. What have we got here? It's a little letter to Mrs. Mary Williams in Broadhill, Scotland, Fife. written in 1967. I wouldn't be lucky enough for there to be a letter in here still. No, that couldn't be. No, this is just the envelope. Too bad. But what have we got in here? Let's see what we have in here. In terms of the table of contents, so you can see what I mean. This is going to be the whole of the reign of the Emperor Augustus, which is a huge chunk of important Roman history. So chapter 1 is the Avenging of Caesar, and that's by M.P. Charlesworth, and has everything, all the way to Philippi. And then the chapter 2 is the Triumvirs, and that is by W.W. Tarn and M.P. Charlesworth. And that has a whole chapter on Antony, a chapter on Cleopatra, a whole chapter on Antony and Cleopatra. Then chapter 3 is the War of the East against the West. That also is Tarn. And then the Triumph of Octavian is chapter 4, and that is also Tarn and Charlesworth. Then the next chapter 5 is the Princeps, which is what Octavian called himself. He didn't want to call himself king, but he was careful to arrogate to himself all the powers of a king. He just didn't want to call himself that because the Romans have some sort of folkloric resistance to that term. But this is by Sir Henry Stuart Jones, and I don't think I've ever read this. I don't think I have. I think I consulted this volume in a library, but only about Mark Antony. I don't think I ever read the rest of it. Then chapter 6 is Senatus Populusque Romanus, which was the SPQR. That was the abbreviation that was chiseled into Roman monuments. And that also is by Sir Henry. And that's all about the Constitution, the Cursus Honorum, which was the carefully planned way that you rose in the civic service, administration of justice, courts, all that sort of stuff. Fantastic. Then we have the imperial administration. Oh, that might sound boring to you, but it's heaven to me. Absolute heaven. That is by G.H. Stevenson. Who I'm gonna have to look up G.H. Stevenson. I could swear that he is a distaff relation to the Stevenson family, to Robert Louis Stevenson. I could swear that, but I'll have to look up and see. It doesn't matter to me either way. And G.H. Stevenson also does the next chapter, which is on the Army and Navy. But there's one on the eastern frontier. There's Egypt. There's Herod. There's the northern frontier, economic unification. Oh man, the social policy of Augustus by Hugh Last. The only problem with this was dirt cheap. The only problem with it is that it is so big that you're not going to be able to see it here in the video, but the text block is starting to come loose from the book, from the binding. It's a little bit loosey-goosey, so I'll be careful with it. I might even use heavy tape on the inside to reinforce that there's only so much you can do. The book itself weighs 5 pounds. So every time you pick it up, every time you use it, every time you open it and fold it on your chest to hold your place or whatever, every time you move it, you're putting 5 pounds of pressure on the backing of that cardboard. That can only take so long, and this thing has probably been in circulation for 70 years. When did Volume 10 come out? 1934, almost a century. But I have a couple of different volumes of the Cambridge Ancient History, and I love them. I especially love the multi-voice approach. I really do. That you wouldn't think that I would, because I always view history as a kind of writing on its own, of course, as a kind of performance on its own. And you remove that element completely when you have a bunch of people contributing separate chapters, more than likely without even reading the chapters of their fellows. And I agree, that element is removed. That element of one person telling you a story, in addition to amassing their research. That element of one person telling a story is gone with the Cambridge Ancient History approach, and a few other series did that as well. But the individual chapters can still sometimes read like songs, so I'm happy to get it. Then this next one, every one of these was a Steve Squealer. This next one, maybe particularly so. About 15 years ago, I found an old copy of the Henry Rawlinson translation of the Histories of Herodotus, speaking of a history that was written by one person to entertain. It had a big, elaborate, old illustration on the cover. It was a big hardcover, and I had that volume forever and ever. I had it in the little book room. I'm pretty sure it's shown up on a library tour, maybe my first library tour, and I got rid of it somehow. Maybe it fell apart. Maybe I just threw it away and I blocked out the memory. But I looked probably 2 years ago and I did not find it. And I'm not saying that the Rawlinson translation of Herodotus is hard to find. It's not. It's easy to find. But I wanted that particular volume. And even for the Brattle, I thought, well, there's no chance that's going to happen. You might want that particular volume, but you're going to have to satisfy yourself with the Rawlinson translation of Herodotus in all kinds of other volumes, because you're never going to find that one again. And I found that one again. The Brattle will provide. This is the volume. This is exactly it, with a kind of Battle of Anghiari cover going on there. This, I could not believe it when I saw this. Even the Brattle's ability to show you multiple copies of literally anything, I thought would be strained by this. I thought I would never see this version again, and I did. So I am going to be very careful with this. I'm going to put a plastic covering over it. But the one thing I'm going to do that maybe purists won't like is I'm going to re-highlight the letters here. I want to be able to see what this is once I put it on the shelf. So I'm going to very carefully re-highlight the letters so that you can see the title and the author, the translator. But I'm also, once I have it reinforced like that and nice and protected, I'm going to read this again, as I have been resistant to rereading Herodotus in English because I wanted that volume. I know that's really dumb, but I'm so happy to have found it. I'm going to take really good care of it this time. Then this next one, I don't know. Who is this? Is this Sword and Pen Press? Seems like one of their things. Skyhorse Publishing. I don't think I ever had this. This is one of the kinds of things that used to be a second-rate choice, a second-choice bargain thing for the old history book club or something like that. I don't think I ever read this, but oh my, as soon as I saw it, I wanted it. This is by Philip Line, and it is The Vikings and Their Enemies. Look at that cover. And this is the Vikings, but this is not one of these 21st century, social impact or women's equality or, were there any black Vikings or anything like that. This isn't anything like this. This is just what the Vikings did best, which was to find people and kill them, or try to. This is the Vikings and Their Enemies. I cannot wait. No falderall on the back, just the cover illustration. And this came out originally in 2014. So I might have got this from the publisher and just not thought anything of it. I don't know about that. I usually keep the Viking books that I get because I love the subject so much. This is just a weird anomaly in human history. You look at it and you realize the Viking era is a weird anomaly. No wonder it's so fascinating. This is going into my collection of Viking books. Absolutely. And then the last thing that we'll do for today is an old Random House edition of W.H. Auden. Some of you, if you've been paying an unhealthy amount of attention to my channel, will know that I got a collected poems of W.H. Auden, and I've been really, there were a couple of years there, I'm largely finished, but there were a couple of years there where I pored over that book. I flew through it when it first came out, and then I've gone through it since and picked and pecked, and I've, of course, read Auden in anthologies as they've come out. But I wanted to grapple with this poet. I wanted to know him better. I wanted to really know him as opposed to just being familiar with a few of his works. And the more I read, and the slower I read, and the more considered I gave it over long periods of time, months and then years, the more I really was impressed, the more I really liked Auden's poetry in that old volume that I used to sell. I used to sell bucket loads of that thing when it first came out. Never even thought of owning it for myself. I thought Auden is not for me at all. I was wrong. I was dead wrong. And that's making me wonder about other 20th century, big, ponderous male poets, specifically Philip Larkin and Wallace Stevens. Those are the two that, Larkin especially, I have my sights on now. Now that I feel like I have Auden. I'm not done learning about him, and I'm not done revisiting his work, but I feel like I have him. And that, when I do that, when I revisit an author like that and it works, it creates a great deal of affection in me. It's led to me having a whole bunch of Auden biographies that I have loved. And that affection shows itself in me wanting editions of Auden. The ones that I first saw, the ones that I've handled the most. That Collected Poems is one of them, although that Collected Poems, it did not survive well. It's still intact, but it did not survive well for a year of usage, 2 years of usage. And I found this today. It's in the exact same series from Random House. It's the exact same cover design. I found an earlier volume, the longer poems of Auden. And then I found this thing, the English Auden, which is essays and poetry from the years that made him Auden, if you know what I mean. After 1939, the whole world knew about this writer. This is his formative period. So of course there's a picture of him smoking, because right, that's how you know that you're young and cool. That's how you know that you are. You don't know any other way. And this has early poetry and tons of essays and reviews, just tons of them, including lots of stuff that is not reprinted in the big volume, the big collection of essays and reviews that came out, in paperback years after this did. This is going to be a feast, absolutely a feast, and it's also going to the dramatic writings here, dramatic scenes and stuff like that. I don't think I've ever read those. I've read about them now in biographies, but I don't think I've ever read them. And I have to admit, a lot of the early poems here, I will have read them, but I won't have read them in the context of the English Auden, of the Auden who is finally becoming Auden. It's a very neat concept for a book. So I saw it, I grabbed it. I grabbed it. So that was my Brattle haul for today. Not the highest number of books, but a lot of bullseyes, because this is certainly going in Little Book Room, right next to the collected poems of Auden. It's going to look very shabby because this is brand new and somebody put a covering on it. So we have the English Auden. We have the Vikings and their enemies. Very good. Fantastic fun. We have the Rawlinson Herodotus in the edition I wanted most. Cannot believe it. I still cannot believe it. I still can't believe that over all these years, 50 years as a customer, I'm still underestimating the Brattle. That just seems impossible. Then we have the Cambridge Ancient History, Volume 10. This is the Peace of Augustus, the Rule of Augustus, the changing of Rome from brick to marble, as he put it. We have The Wreck of the Mary Dear by Hammond Inns. We have William Pitt the Younger by William Hague, which is raw territory. I don't think I've ever read this book. And we have Citizen Washington by Bill Martin, which I know is a sentimental favorite of his. I know that it was probably the book that every author has, where they're putting it off, but they got to write that book before they pop their clogs. I'm pretty sure that this was probably that book for him. That alone makes me feel like I should give it another read. But there's a lot of stuff in here I want to revisit. The hardest thing in this particular Brattle haul is going to be refraining from reading the Rawlinson Herodotus until I can reinforce it. I need to put a cover on it, a dust jacket on it, and I need to see what I can do about discreetly reinforcing the inside of it. But it's calling to me the most. That and the Viking book, of course, because the Vikings and their enemies. Is there any better title for a book? But anyway, that was just a beautiful spring day Brattle haul. That's all. And I don't think I'm going to go to the Brattle for a few more days. Of course, I'm not going to go on the weekend. The MBTA has all the subway system here, on which I am dependent, has a huge amount of construction going this weekend, and that they don't handle that well. So I'm not even going to bother with it. I'm just going to leave it alone. But the next time I go, you will be first to know. We'll come back with a pile of books and show them to you. So until then, I'll wrap this up. But I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.